Welcome to this presentation. My name is Natalie from Orchid. Today Anne and I will go through some new features for EFT processing for Sage Intacct that will be released in the next few weeks. EFT processing lets you streamline Sage Intacct payments and receipts using electronic funds transfer. You would use EFT processing to automate the creation of EFT files for your bank, leading to increased efficiency, accuracy, and security. It helps you eliminate expensive paper checks, avoid duplicate data entry, and therefore has a quick ROI. It integrates seamlessly with Sage Intacct accounts payable, accounts receivable, and times and expenses employee reimbursements. In terms of file creation, you can create a payment or a direct debit file in the format required by your bank, integrated in Sage Intacct payment processing routines. These files are generated using our common mapping engine and file formats that we share with different applications. And as a result, we currently support over 800 bank formats from over 80 countries, and we create new formats and update new formats on request for customers who have a current subscription. Some of the formats we work with are domestic payments in a range of countries, cross-border payments, positive pay files to support checks, wire payments, NACHA, CPA 005 in Canada, SEPA in Europe, ISO 222 for a range of banks, and you can customize or adjust to create your own formats. We will touch on that today. EFT processing stores your own EFT bank details, as well as vendor, customer, and employee bank details, all held within Sage Intacct. And you can configure user-definable screen labels to reflect the bank terminology. An account number can be called different things in different countries. There are a range of security features in EFT processing, like extensive audit logs of the files created, as well as changes to the banking details. The files are created using industry-leading WebAssembly technology, and mapping of your banking information takes place within the Sage Intacct environment, not on a third-party site. It's developed in the Sage Intacct environment, providing familiar look and feel, as well as standard security and customization capabilities. The new features that we are about to implement include support for enhanced lists and advanced filters as implemented recently in Sage Intacct. So we're displaying the fact that the filters have been selected on the screen in a different way. We've also added the ability to clear one or all of the filters applied various screens. We've also improved some of the validations. Currently, you can validate your branch transit field as well as the account number. Now you can set up a minimum and a maximum length for all EFT bank, vendor, customer, and employee fields. So all the extra fields that get added per format can be validated. And for fields that only accept a limited list of values, we can now add drop-down values as well as validate the values that are entered. So what we're going to do today is talk about these various validations in the context of the overall EFT processing for Sage Intacct process. We presented getting started step to implement EFT processing in Sage Intacct in a recent webinar. So if you need more detail on how to get started, I'd encourage you to have a look at the videos on the Orchid website. Basically, a reminder that the process is you enter, post, and approve your payments in Sage Intacct. No changes with that. And then you go into the Orchid's EFT menu in Sage Intacct to select your payments, and that can be your AP payments, your AR payments, or your employee reimbursements payments. And we're going to show you examples of selecting filtering to select the right payments. You can then generate a file, download it, and upload it to your banking software. So we will show you an example of validation happening when you generate a file, download a file, and also when you're entering the banking details. So we'll start with filtering. How does advanced filtering work? You'll be able to filter on one field or multiple fields, and you can see a summary of all the filters that are enabled by looking at the filters button, and there's also ability to clear the filters. The filters apply on the AP payment request screen, the AR payment request screen, the employee payment request screen, also applies on the EFT file list. It applies on the screen where you select AR payments to create AR payments in bulk before generating the file. Before we delve into the demonstration, here's an example screenshot of the EFT file list with filters enabled. You can see we've added two filters, one on the date created and one on the status, that we only show new files. And on the top right, we have our filters button indicating that two filters are available and the number of records that are displayed on the screen. I'm now going to hand over to Anne to show us how filtering works in the new release.
The new features in filtering in the Orchid EFT screens applies to all the screens with a filtered list. The EFT employee payment requests, AP payment requests, AR payment requests, the EFT file list, create AR payments, EFT banks, and EFT formats. Looking at EFT AP payment requests as an example, all the payment request screens start off by filtering based on a calendar month prior for the payment date. So today -1 calendar month. And you can see the filter is applied on this field because the filter icon is in grey. Previously, we used to show the column payment date in italics. You can also click on the filters. It shows you how many filters are applied, and when you click on it, it shows you the filter that is applied. And you can clear all or apply more from here. So if, for example, I want to filter on my payment currency and look only at my USD payments, I can see that I have two filters applied, and these two filter icons are dark, showing me that those are the columns that are filtered. If I was to reopen the AP payment requests filter tomorrow, the payment date will be reset to 30 days previously, but all my other filters will be remembered. So I'm still filtering on US dollar payments only. So let me just clear all my filters and have a look at the features within the new filters. Your filters can be equals, not equals, is one of, is not one of, starts with, ends with, contains, does not contain, is blank, or is not blank. And these are the filters applicable to character fields. Date fields can be filtered by equals, not equals, before, after, on or before, on or after, in a range, or is blank. And numeric fields can be filtered by not equal to, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, is blank, is not blank, or in a range. So let's filter for all my vendors, which starts with CO. And now I'm picking up all my consolidated consulting vendors. And in my filter list, I can see that filter. I could add a new filter here, where the payment currency equals USD. And now I'm only seeing the consolidated consulting vendors where the payment currency is USD. and I have my filters indicated by the filter. And a reminder, you can click on any column header to sort either ascending, A to Z, or descending, Z to A. That's on an alpha field. But on a numeric field, it will be 0 to 9, ascending, or descending, 9 to 0. And beside the filters, which shows us 2 filters are displayed, it also shows you the number of records that are currently being displayed. So if I was to clear my filters, I would go back to the original 12 records. So let's have a look at this on a different screen, the EFT file lists. Currently, I have 189 records being displayed, and I've got no filters applied. So if I didn't want to see my deleted records, I could say not equal to deleted. Apply that filter, and I've now got 159 records. And if I was interested in looking at only my new files, equals new and apply, and now I'm only looking at my new records. And this filter is remembered if I went back to the EFT file list on another day. I see my filter is being applied, the status is new, and 103 records are currently selected. And looking at the Create AR Payments screen, a reminder that you can make the columns as wide as you need, and it remembers that per user per screen. So here I'm looking at all my outstanding invoices that I can create payments for. But if I typically only create payments for my insurance customers, I could say it equals insurance, apply that filter, and now I could go ahead and create a receipt for those particular insurance invoices.
Thanks, Anne, for your detailed presentation on filtering. Something that has been asked over the last few months is the ability to clear filters. So now if you can't find the records that you think you should see on a particular screen, the first thing to check is whether any filters are active and whether you need to remove them or change them. So there are 2 ways to remove the filters. One is looking at a specific column where the filter icon is filled in, click the button and you can use clear. Or if you use the icon on the top right of the screen with the number of filters active, you can remove one or several or all the filters in one go. The other new functionality in the forthcoming release of EFT for Intacct is additional validation on bank details. What does EFT validate? You can configure a minimum and maximum length for various fields, and you can now configure a list of valid values for certain fields, and this is all driven by the file format that you are using. In previous versions, you could only validate the branch code and the account number. There's 2 ways it does the validation. It displays a warning message when you are entering EFT details for EFT bank or vendor, supplier, customer EFT details or employee details on the Orchid EFT screen. This warning lets you save the records with the information you already have, and then you may need to double check the details before coming back to finish the update. When you generate a file using the payment request screens, or when you download the file using the EFT file list, you cannot generate or download the file if the details do not meet the requirements of the format that you are using. So you will see an error message telling you which vendor or bank, which field isn't right. So I'm going to hand back to Anne to show us how the validation works in Sage Intacct.
You can now embed validations in the EFT file format that apply to the EFT bank record. So in this example, the USA PNC IPS CHK format, the check format for the PNC bank, needs at least a 6-character transit or routing number, at least an 8-character account number, a company ID, and the application format, which needs to be provided by the bank, and the return address code. And new in this product update, we can now specify the bank name as well, instead of using the bank name from the current account, which was entered on the Sage Intacct current account record. And once you enter the minimum length for each of the fields that have a length restriction, then the message will go away, as it has done for the transit number and now for the account number. For the USA PNC IPS CHK format, the bank branch number must be 6 to 12 digits, and the bank branch number is called transit or routing number. The account size is 8 to 34 digits, and the account number field is called account number on the bank, vendor, customer, and employee screens. And then all the prefixes of bank extra 1 through to bank extra 10 are extra fields on the bank record, which can be configured accordingly. So bank extra 1 is called company ID, and the size is 1 to 15 characters. Bank extra 2 is called application format. The tooltip is the check remittance style, which needs to be provided by PNC, and the field length is 3. And for the bank extra 3, the field is called return address code, 2 characters long. The size is exactly 2, but in this case a drop-down list is provided. So the value UM indicates the US mail, ON is overnight, BM is bulk mail, CN Canadian, IT international. So instead of having to type in those characters, you can just select from the drop-down. And the validation length is 2 characters long. And these field length and type validations are given both at the time of data entry on the EFT bank record and at the time of generating an EFT file with this bank and format, and at the time of downloading an EFT file with this bank and format. For example, if my EFT bank record did not have sufficient digits for the routing number or account number, when using this EFT bank record for an AP payment, the EFT file would not be created. We're getting an error message that the BSB or branch number must be at least 6 characters, and the account number must be at least 8 characters. Or when downloading an EFT file where the data does not match the EFT file format validations, you will get an error message at this stage too. So in this case, the bank's branch number needs to be 12 characters long, as well as the vendor 20017 branch number needs to be 12 characters. If there are some validations in the format which do not match the data that you have, you can contact Orchid to assist in changing the EFT file format. Alternatively, you can change it yourself as well. So in this case, the branch size is 12 digits long, but we know it's 6 to 12 digits long, so we could change it, save the EFT file format, and now that EFT file should be downloaded. And similarly, on the AP vendor, on the Orchid EFT tab, you can now apply validations on all the fields on the Orchid EFT tab for vendors. When you select the EFT file format that you want to use for this particular vendor, EFT processing gives you the indication of what the fields need to be. The branch number or route number needs to be at least 8 characters, and the account number must be at least 4 characters. We've always been able to give these warnings on the branch number and the account number, but now you can apply the warnings on all the fields on the EFT vendor tab, including the reference, as well as all the extra fields, 1 to 50, that we can turn on depending on the format. And as you fill in the data correctly, the warning will go away. And now we can also give a drop down. So if the values on the record need to be a code 22 or 32, for example, we can now have a drop down which allows you to select the value without having to key it in. So these warnings or validations are given on the Orchid EFT tab for the AP vendor, but the validations are also applied when you generate a file or download a file. So you're not able to create a file or download a file with the incorrect data. So if my route number was incorrect, when I try and generate a file for that vendor, I would get the error message that the branch number must be at least 8 characters. And similarly, if I did manage to generate a file, but the format was changed subsequently and the data was no longer valid, you would get the same error message when you download the file. And looking at the EFT file format for the Nature SB, we see that the branch size is 8 to 9 and the branch number is labeled RT number, and this applies to all the records, the EFT bank record, the EFT vendor details, the EFT customer details, and the EFT employee details. Similarly, the account size is 4 to 17, and the label for the account number is account number. The account name is also called account name, but it could be overwritten on the vendor, customer, bank, and employee if required. The fields starting with bank all refer to the EFT bank records, but if we scroll down, we see the vendor payment reference field is labeled transcode 2232. The tooltip is 22 deposit destined for checking account, 32 deposit destined for savings account. The size is 2 characters long, and the drop-down value denoted by the field label .value is 22 for the deposit destined for checking account and 32 for the deposit destined for savings account. And we can see for employees that is set up in the same way. So on the EFT employee record, we get the same values for branch, account, and the payment reference. And if we were configuring for the P&C Bank, where the P&C Bank prints the check, we can see similar validations for the transaction routing number and the account number, but here they need an ISO country code, which must be 2 characters long. If you wanted to actually validate what the 2 characters must be, we could update the formats file to put in a dot value for this vendor extra one. If you allowed the country codes of UK, US and Canada, it would be as follows. And we could add a tooltip to help with the data entry. The vendor extra one tip gives us the select appropriate ISO country code, and the dot values gives us the drop-down values in the formatted list. And if we select Canada, the 2 character code that would be used in the file would be CA. And similarly, just like you can validate the fields on the EFT Banks, EFT Vendors tab and EFT Employees tab, you can also validate the fields on the AR Customer Orchid EFT tab. So once you select a format, in this case the SEPA direct debit for Europe, additional validations can be applied to all the fields, not just the bank branch and bank account number as it was previously. So in this case, for the SEPA, we need to have a country code, which is 2 characters long. We need an IBAN and a SWIFT. We need the SEPA mandate ID. We need the date of the mandate, which must be formatted year, month, day. And we need a service level code. And in this case, we have a drop down to either choose the core service level code or the B2B service level code. And as you start typing in the values for the various fields, once the validation is met, the red message will go away and the field will be labeled accordingly. Just like with the country code, once I typed in UK, it is no longer displaying the error message. Similarly, for the mandate ID, which needs to be at least 1 character long, the date of the signature, formatted year, month, day, and whether or not the service level is core or B2B. And the RUM number has no length validation. And looking at the validation applied by the EFT format file, the BSB or branch size is 0 to 11. That's why we got no warning on the length for the branch. The account size is 0 to 34. That's why we got no warning on the account number either. The branch code is called Financial Institution ID. The account number is called account number, and the account name is called account name. And then the customer payment reference is labeled country code of 2 characters, and the field size is 2 characters. And then the other customer extra fields are labeled customer extra 1 through to customer extra 50, depending how many are needed for the format. So the first one is for the IBAN number, the second one is for the SWIFT code, BIC or SWIFT code, the third one is the mandate ID, and the mandate has a minimum size of 1 to 35. Customer extra 4 is labeled date of signature. The tip is date of mandate signature in year, month, day, and the size is exactly 10. And then for the customer extra 5, it is labeled service level code, core/B2B. The tip is core equals SEPA core direct debit, and B2B equals SEPA business to business B2B direct debit. The size is 3 or 4, and the values, and because we have a dot values, that's why we have a drop down. Core relates to SEPA core direct debit, B2B relates to SEPA, business to business, direct debit, and the values of core or B2B will go in the EFT file. And the customer extra 6 is labeled RUM number. And RUM number does not have a field length validation or a tip or a field size. If I neglected to fill in all the details correctly on the accounts receivable customer on the Orchid EFT tab, and then I went to generate an EFT file, the validations would be applied at this stage. So I'm getting the error message that the extra 5 field needs to be at least 3 characters. So if I fix up that record, and save the correct service level code, now I'll be able to include that receipt in an EFT file. And if there were format changes between the time the file was created and before it downloaded, these validations would be applied again.
We've seen examples of validating fields configured on the EFT bank. So it's the account number, the bank code, and the 10 extra fields you can add, as well as the source reference can be used in a file. Examples on the EFT vendor and the EFT employee screen, and that's the account number, the bank code, and all the extra fields you can add, as well as the destination reference. And then same thing on the EFT customer. You do the configuration in the EFT format. For field length, you use the size property, and if you want to make a field mandatory, you say size equals 1:x, where x is the maximum length. To add a list of valid values, you write the key value in the description for all the values that are relevant. The key is what will end up in the file. The description is what you see on the screen when you update the details. And this is all documented in the online help that you can access from within Intacct. How to activate those new features when they are released? You need to be registered on the Orchid website and log on as a partner. You can then download the new XML package for EFT processing. You can import it into your Sage instance in Platform Services. You also need to update the existing formats to enable the validation. And for this, you can contact us. If your client has an active subscription, we can help you adjust the formats that they're currently using. And for this, you can email support@orchid.systems. You can also use the knowledge base, the online help, and the community to find more information about how to do it. Thanks for your time, and we're now open for questions.